Welcome to Dart Jewel, a space for soul work, story, and liberation. I'm your host, Dr. Dwayne Gelly. This podcast is where faith meets reflection, where culture holds space for healing, and where purpose finds its voice in our everyday lives. Whether you're walking through pain, standing in purpose, or just learning to breathe again, there's light in your story. So let's walk in it together. I grew up in a multigenerational household, and that came with blessings, more than I could count. I was surrounded by language, history, and rituals. I was held by a sense of rootedness that stretched far beyond the borders of a country. Culture was something I was showered with. It was something that lived and grew in me. But what I didn't know then that I carry now is that my identity was being formed in the margins of societal expectations. Inside my home, there was a sacred rhythm, a way of speaking, praying, cooking, and even sitting in silence that belonged to my family, to my church, and to my people. But outside my home, that rhythm just didn't fit. And so I was split between these two worlds. Later in life, I was fortunate to be exposed to the works of W.E.B. Du Bois, teaching me about double consciousness, and researchers in the field of cultural psychology that spoke to me about frame switching. These lessons taught me how to escape from the margins. They taught me how to reframe my story and to treasure that at a very young age, I learned to navigate multiple cultures. The culture of home that fed my soul, and the foreign cultures that I used to survive in external spaces. Here's the thing about having your identity being formed in the margins. You're always either too much or not enough. Growing up, my maternal grandmother was the elder statesperson in my family. All her grandchildren call her Gran, and just about all of us had the privilege of her having a hand in raising us. When the cousins do get to come together, the one thing we all have in common, if nothing else, is our stories about Gran. By the time Gran came to live with us, she had already lived a full life. She had spent decades in England after growing up and starting a family in Jamaica. She was a daddy's girl, a no-nonsense mother, a wife, a widow, and a lover of wrestling. By this time, I was 9 years old, still figuring myself out, still growing into the sound of my own voice. Gran didn't just move in with us. She brought with her some of the foundations of my identity, the weight of home culture, and what would become a source of my pride. Admittedly, I didn't always appreciate her presence. Maybe because at the time I really didn't understand her. At the time, I couldn't translate the nuances between the margins, and she had already lived in, and in her own way, had escaped the margins. However, in the time she spent with us, Gran poured into me. Not in a grand ceremonial way, but in the rhythm of everyday life, in the way we sat together in her room watching old movies or wrestling, because for reasons I never understood, she was genuinely into it. In those moments, we were just there. No performance, no pressure, just her laughter meeting mine. But it wasn't always light. There were other moments. Moments when she looked at me as a reflection of someone she had already poured herself into, my uncle. It was the resemblance that lingered in her mind, in my quiet nature, in the way I played, in the way she hoped I would turn out. Let's just say I wasn't especially fond of my uncle growing up. And that's not a reflection of who he was as a person at all. She scolded me hard some days, and I knew, even then, it wasn't just about what I did. It was about what she feared I might become or fail to become. That was her way of pouring too. Not just sugar, but some bitter. Not just softness, but some sharpening. The older I got, the more I pushed back. Not out of rebellion, but out of misunderstanding. My identity was still being baked. I didn't know how to balance her expectations and everything else. And this is the part I need you to hear. I wasn't just resisting Grant's vision. I was learning to survive in the margins. You see, growing up in this multi-generational home that gave me access to a deep-rooted culture that stretched far beyond the content of history books, it lived in food, in language, in silence, and in song. But outside of home, that culture had no space. And inside the home, I didn't dare bring the outside world in. So I was split. I became one version of myself in the house and another at school. Too much of one, not enough of the other. And truthfully, I didn't do a great job at balancing it. That's when anxiety started to show up. Not as panic, but as presence. A hum beneath my skin, a tightness in my chest. The sense that no matter what room I walked into, I had to shrink or stretch or shift to fit. As a matter of fact, this podcast is a testimony of my escape from the margins. Growing up, anxiety taught me to hate the sound of my voice because it highlighted how much I didn't fit. But I've come to an understanding of something. I'm not anxiety. I'm experiencing anxiety. And in that experience, there's room for observation. Anxiety is often the signal that you're carrying too many narratives in too small a vessel. And breath is how you make space again. Breath is more than calm, it's reclamation. Every inhale is a quiet proclamation that I'm still here. Every exhale is a firm decision that I don't have to carry what was never mine. Breath is the bridge between who I was expected to be and who I'm still allowing myself to become. It's how I turn the page without erasing the chapter. Let's practice that together. Let's breathe. Find a still place. Sit or lie down. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Let your shoulders fall. Let your jaw soften. Let your body know you're safe. Now, take a deep breath. Inhale through your nose and fill your belly with air. Exhale through your nose and empty the air out of your belly. Slow down. Deep breath in. Exhale slowly. Let the breath move you like a tide rising and falling. Now picture this. Inside your mind, there is a quiet room, not perfect, but honest. It holds all the stories you've been told, the ones you've outgrown, the ones you're still carrying, even when they don't fit. Breathe in and notice what's here, not to judge, just to witness. Inhale the parts that still feel true. Exhale the ones you're ready to release. Inhale your culture. Exhale the shame of hiding it. Inhale your truth. Exhale the pressure to perform. Let your breath be your co-author. Allow it to create space where your identity can breathe, where your story can stretch out without apology. You are not broken. You are becoming, and becoming takes breath. Thank you for being here, for breathing with me, for honoring your inner voice in the midst of so many others. Before we close, I want to take a moment to venerate my grandmother, Virginia Shand, whose presence, wisdom, and fire shaped more of me than I ever realized. This episode is for her, and for every elder who saw more in us than we could see in ourselves. If this episode spoke to you, I invite you to follow Dark Jewel on your preferred platform and share it with someone who may be living in the margins, searching for breath between stories. Until next time, blessed love.